welcome to the third Northern Film Review here with Luke Simpson, and today we've got a fantastic little show for you. We're going to be doing it all about Ex Machina. Last week we did The Shining, which I think was a very successful show, and we talked all about Stanley Kubrick's many theories of The Shining and the film that was made about The Shining, which is quite a long film. But today we're going to be talking about the Ex Machina and the sort of the quarrels with making an indie film like that, and the sort of how it propelled the sci-fi genre towards what it is today, and just how the sort of film it is. Hopefully you enjoy. The Northern Film Review with your hosts Oliver Ellis and Luke Simpson. So, Luke.
Yes.
How are you?
I am grand. Thank you very much for asking.
How do you think last week went?
It went great, yeah. I really enjoyed talking about Kubrick, and Shining is one of my favourite films, I think. After rewatching it after doing the podcast. Brilliant film.
Yeah, it is quite a good film. And I enjoyed watching it for the podcast. And I think it was a wonderful film to talk about, and it was quite an interesting sort of thing to kind of sink your teeth into, because it's got a lot of interesting theories about it, and yeah, it's interesting. So, but not talking about Stanley Kubrick today. Who are we talking about? What film are we talking about?
Well, we're
today,
talking about Ex Machina today, a wonderful little indie sci-fi film. So, for those who haven't seen Ex Machina, I'll give you a brief synopsis about it. But I would say, go and watch it, please, because it's a great film. So, there's Caleb, who's a programmer. Caleb, sorry. There's Caleb, who's a programmer for a huge internet company. He wins a contest, which enables him to spend a week at a private estate of Nathan, his firm's brilliant CEO. When he arrives, Caleb learns that he has been chosen to be the human component in a Turing test to determine the capability of the consciousness of Ava, the robot. However, it seems to become evident that Ava is more self-aware than they knew.
Yeah, which is I think first of all what we should do is how do you pronounce it? Is because I went doing research for this. There's about 100 different people who pronounced it 100 different ways.
Yeah. So what I've heard Ex Machina and Ex Machina.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure it's Ex Machina because I swear Machina. Yeah. I heard the director say that once, so I'm sticking with it.
Because I think it's and I'll maybe talk about this later on the show. It's based off Deus Ex Machina, which is a Latin word. Well, it's Latin-y. Well, it was Latin for God from the machine, which I think, I looked up the definition of Deus Ex Machina, and to be honest with you, I'm no more informed on it really. The actual definition is a person, thing, or thing that appears or is introduced into a situation suddenly and unexpectedly, and provides an artificial or contrived solution to an apparently insoluble difficulty. Or I don't know. Yeah, and I suppose actually kind of reading that about now, it does really relate to the film.
Yeah,
I think, which if you haven't seen the film, I'd watch it before you listen to this podcast, because we're going to give you some mega spoilers. But it's a fantastic film, and it was released in 2016. Was it
2014?
2014?
Yes.
Wow, I got that wrong. Yeah, 2014, which is amazing, really. I didn't. So I would have been 14.
Mm-hmm.
Or around that age. Which is quite a long time ago, really. And yeah, I think I'm trying to find some sort of critics reviews on it is relatively difficult, as it's an older film. As I found with The Shining. but a couple of people, and I got some interesting sort of reviews on this. So Metacritic, and I use two websites. I use Metacritic and I use Rotten Tomatoes because I think that's probably the best place to get sort of interesting reviews. Not perhaps the best reviews, but the interesting reviews. And that's kind of what I want. And Metacritic, the Metacritic score is 78, and the user score is 8.0. And I talk about this every week. Their scoring system between the two is quite nice, which is an all right score, very similar in terms of like critic and user score, around the sort of 80% mark. And I've got a couple of views from Stephen Ray, from the Philadelphia Inquirer, and he says Garland's picture is deceptively simple, essentially just three characters: the aggressive, beer-swilling Nathan, the innocent, inquisitive Caleb, and the quick study. Is that what it says? I can't read my laptop; it's so far away. No. The quick study with the ballerina's gait and the blinking lights in her abdomen, Ava. The dynamics among the three shift and my mic's doing quick. And sway as Caleb is first allied with his mentor Nathan and then won over by Ava. Hang on, let me just move my laptop in a position. Hang on. Technical difficulties. Hang on. And of the user scores, which I found quite funny, is I've put in my notes. It's just some guy because I don't think I should I don't really care about him. He gave it a 7. He gave it a 7, right? And he says, "I like these type of movies, and this one I enjoyed very much. Storyline good, acting good, a fun piece of science fiction, well worth seeing. I'd recommend this to anyone who likes science fiction." I think, that's quite a positive review, isn't
Yeah.
it? You know what I mean? And he gave it a 7. I mean, a 7's a positive review. And that's his whole review. It's just saying a bunch of positive stuff about it. He gives it a 7. I
There should be some critical
don't know.
analysis in
That's
that if
perhaps
it's a
why
7.
I like reading out these sort of yeah, I mean, like, a 7's still a positive score, but I think there's something obviously relatively, about the film that you
Yeah.
give it a 7. I think if I was to write that review, I'd be like, 9, 8.5, maybe, like, yeah, whatever. Anyway, some guy from Metacritic gave it a 7, and and the Rotten Tomato score 92 on the tomato meter, 86 audience 86 audience score. And Alison Wilmore said Ex Machina is a disquieting power struggle waged in terms of human weakness refracted through gender, which I perhaps maybe I see the sort of the gender critique in there, but I don't know. And I think that brings us on to the sort of the interesting topic of the line between human and robot, which I think the film is all about.
Yeah.
And I think because Alison Wilmore said it's waged in terms of human weakness. I think lots of things within the film really show the sort of the line between the human and the robot, which I think is a sort of a service level interpretation of it. And I think, Luke, when you were watching the film, did you kind of get that sort of immediately and sort of the power of that the film gave, or do you think it was more sort of nuanced?
Well, it was quite a while ago when I first saw it. So when I
Yeah.
first saw it, I really didn't have like the film making analysis in mind, but I do, especially between Caleb and Ava. I do think so. Yeah.
And I think the relationship's quite odd. And I think Caleb, I'm not sure who he's played by, but he's in the Star Wars movies, and he was in an episode of Black Mirror, I think. So he's kind of like within this sort of sci-fi realm.
Dormel
Quite a
Gleeson, I
bit.
think it is.
Oh God, my dog. Yeah, and I think he was in Frank as well, which is a film written by John Ronson. which I love. Which is also another indie film. I think that's quite exciting.
Well, let's first of all, we need to tell the audience what an indie film is if they don't know already, because
Yeah.
an indie film is an independent film. It's a film or short film produced outside the major film studio system, and basically,
Mm.
as a result of that, means the budget is way, 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 way lower. So this
Mm.
Ex Machina, the film, had a budget of 15 million, which yes
It
seems a
sounds quite a
lot,
lot
but
though.
it sounds quite a lot to people who don't know films. But for a film, that isn't a lot. If you've seen Alina Battle Angel, that had a budget of 200 million, and they're both on par with each other.
Mm. Mm. I think if you were to go like this is an indie film to someone, people would go, oh, like I mentioned, like the film Frank, and it'd be like kind of like a dirty sort of wooden shack somewhere, people playing music or some sort of quirky blue haired person wandering around the country, and that's
Yeah,
what you kind of think about indie films. But if you tell someone that Ex Machina was an indie film, you'd be like, what? What are you on
nah.
about? Some sort of no, because if you look at it, it looks quite high budget, don't you think?
Yeah, it looks very good, very very good, and
Mm.
you have to give credit to the cinematographer in that as well.
Yes, yes, it's quite like it's the cinematography of a big budget film done on a lower budget film, which I think
Mm.
is quite interesting. And I think the cinematography is, I think, what perhaps we focused on in sort of the first two films is a lot about the sort of cinematography. And I think this film does have good cinematography and it's quite pretty. It's quite aesthetically pleasing. But I think perhaps it's not the thing of note within the
No,
film. I think what would you say are like the big main like things of note within the film, like cinematography, sound, music, whatever?
well, in my personal opinion, it would be visual effects because I am a bit of a visual effects geek.
Mm,
I do love watching them and researching about them, and
yeah.
how they did some of these effects is really clever. Because they're working in such a small budget, and you have to have different techniques to get around time constraints and technical stuff. And one of them was, yet again, going back to one of my favorite channels on YouTube is Corridor Digital. Um, they were explaining how they did some of the effects in it, and one of them was on their suits, the metallic looking suit. Um, it's basically their whole outfit, their whole robot is just that. The only things that they have that is not VFX is their face and their feet, which is point of contact to the world and to the surroundings, which makes it look more realistic. And how they did some of the techniques and stuff like that. And the hardest thing about VFX is tracking and making sure it looks real in inside the film. And how they did it was really clever because on the suit it had little hexagonal patterns on it, which meant you can easily motion track it, which is one of the hardest things and most time-consuming things to do for VFX. And they sneakily put a way to have a motion track. Their costume has a motion track suit, which I found really clever. Um, and for a fact that most shots in the film is 8 to 10 seconds long, and in most big budget films, most shots are around, especially action shots and VFX heavy shots, are around 1 to 2 seconds, which means they had 8 to 10 seconds to hand animate this robot to make it look realistic. And that I have to give credit to the VFX artists in that because it it looks so seamless and beautiful and just amazing. And that's what I when I first saw it and I first realized how they realized the effects in it, and I just realized how good it really looks. And yeah, I have to say that's
Mm,
the
mm.
one
And I
thing that I
think
focus on.
mm, I think this is I think comparably in terms of VFX, would you say it's similar in terms of VFX to Parasite?
What, like effects that you wouldn't think they are
You
effects.
you wouldn't think, well, you wouldn't think they're effects, and you might think, oh, that is perhaps
Oh, that
a
looks easy to do, and
yeah.
yeah, I would say yeah, but there are some shots in it that, especially reflecting on the glass, which meant it was hard because the human body's never standing still. You're always shaking. It makes it hard to motion track all the time. There's one specific scene that I remember one of them talking about is one she's just holding up a drawing, and apparently that was one of the most hardest shots to do because you're always moving. A human's always moving, but she's not. Ava's not human. She's a robot, so she has to be still, and they had to find a way to make it look just not moving at all. And apparently, that I think 5 seconds shot took ages for them to do. But it's that shot that you think, oh, that looks like an easy shot to do, and no, 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 complete opposite.
Yeah, and I think stuff like that is sort of really what sets this apart from other indie films is the sort of the dedication to the
And
art.
attention to detail, and
Real,
attention to detail.
yeah, the real attention to detail.
And you got to say
And I think
for
that,
his first
like I said,
film,
it really sets it apart from other films.
yeah, and say for his first
Well,
major
I wouldn't say its first directorial debut, I'd
debut,
say.
yeah, for his first directorial debut, you got to give him credit. You really do. To make a film
Yeah.
like that, yes, he's worked alongside great directors along his time, especially um, when he wrote for 28 Days Later. And
Mm.
who did 28 Days Later? I had it in my head a second ago.
Danny Boyle.
Danny Boyle, that's it. Guy did Sunshine, yeah. So he's worked alongside him, and I'm guessing he would have asked for tips and stuff like that. But for directorial debut, to produce a film like that with the budget it had, you just got to give him credit.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite a fantastic film. I think and the sort of what I the cinematography also goes along these lines of sort of the preciseness and the level of like interest. I think perhaps the cinematography is pretty, but it's not that interesting. But I think one of the things that they do well is sort of emphasizing certain power dynamics between the three characters,
Yeah,
which is quite interesting. It's just like the start of the film, all the shots that include Ava and Caleb, all of the shots are just kind of like they always look down on Ava, and Ava,
Ava.
and looking up at Caleb. I think they and it kind of morphs into sort of more looking straight on with Ava, and then looking up at Ava as if she has the power as the film goes on, and all that sort of stuff.
It's one of the most simple cinematographical cinematographical tricks. The low angle shot, the medium shot, and the high angle shot to show power dynamic.
Mm.
And it's like it's the first thing I remember us learning at film school is especially cinematography is the low angle shot, the medium shot, and high angle shot.
Yeah, and they do that quite well, and it's kind of very well emphasized in the various shots and all that, and the use of red within the various shots, like when the power outage is, and they do that sort of weird
Very
dancing
weird.
um, and then yeah, and that sort of thing, which is quite yeah, I love the red in that film. And I think, and also coming back to the sort of the zero budget, it's all more or less filmed in one
in the
location
one
with three
house, yeah.
actors. Yeah. Obviously there's sort of the shots where Caleb's like in his office and he's being flown over in a helicopter and stuff.
Mm.
But the majority of the film is filmed
One
within the
location,
house.
yeah.
And I think it's really quite well done. I think it reminds me a little bit of I don't know whether you've seen this, but Inside Number Nine, where it's all kind of filmed in one.
Yes, great TV show.
Yeah,
Great
it's
TV show.
all filmed in one location, and I
Mm.
think I'm talking of like number 9. I think the film Ex Machina really sort of influenced sort of other sort of lower budget sort of sci-fi things like Black Mirror and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Which I think is you can really see the sort of relationships there and sort of like
AI going wrong,
like technology bad.
because that's technology equals bad.
Yeah, I think that's really quite well done. It's kind of the sort of the star of that sort of world. Um,
Yeah. So talk about Inside Number Nine. Inside Number Nine started alongside. I think came out just after um, Ex Machina. It came out 2000. It came out 2014.
mm,
So a
yeah, and this is
bit early.
I think it's sort of like what. To be fair, I really, really quite love these sort of um, the stuff like Ex Machina and Inside Number 9, where they're kind of like they're all done
Mm.
with one location, and it's kind of like psychological, and
Yeah.
like you got to like figure out
Yeah.
who's the bad guy, and
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff like that.
Gotta love Inside Number Nine, especially with a bit of comedy, because I love Reese. Reese.
Yeah, yeah, it's quite
He's,
funny.
he's
It's
Reese J. Smith and Steve Pemberton. Yeah.
yeah, and it really does that quite well. And I think the structure of the script within Ex Machina is really done quite well. I think this is the more notable thing about Ex Machina is the way that the script is written, and the fact that um, Ava is kind of the protagonist, but her story is told through Caleb's eyes.
Yeah.
Um, and the fact that she's the one who needs to escape and she's the one who needs to kind of get to the place and Caleb is basically the person
Stopping her.
or to help her along
Yeah.
um and I think it's really quite well done in that sort of respect. It's kind of an interesting perspective. I think often you go, oh, it is from the viewpoint of one person and it's their story and they are the protagonist, and then perhaps um, going at the protagonist is Ava and it's told through the eyes of Caleb. Is what did you think of the acting and sort of like
It's
the acting?
it's great acting.
Yeah.
Which I didn't. The first time I watched it, I didn't realize it, but it's got Oscar Isaac in it. It's Nathan is played by Oscar Isaac.
Mm.
And well, obviously you've got
What
a
else
really
is?
good Oscar Isaac. Where he's going to be in the so he's in Star Wars. He's actually just recently announced to play Moon Knight, which I'm so excited about because Moon Knight's one of my favorite comic book characters. Full stop.
Mm.
Brilliant. But
Mm.
he's been in loads of stuff, but the acting in it is brilliant. So for three people
Mm.
to have that chemistry, and some scenes were heartbreaking, some scenes were emotional, some scenes were actiony. The way they mixed it together, it was brilliant, brilliant, well acted, and just yeah, not more I can say about it. Just brilliant
No,
acting.
yeah. I think I don't know whether it won any sort of Academy Awards or whatever, but I think it's definitely sort of within the remit of winning an Academy Award because it's kind of like 'cause that's the sort of stuff I love. Is kind of like personality driven cinema, which is this is definitely one of. And I think it's quite interesting.
It,
I
it won best visual effects
yeah,
in the Academy Awards.
yeah. Which yeah, probably should have done. I think at the time it was
It
quite.
did.
I think I think at the time it's definitely out there, sort of like oh, people are like really impressed by the visual effects of it and stuff like that, which is yeah, it's an interesting film and I quite
So
like it a
it
lot.
won a lot of British awards. The BIFA, the British Independent Film Awards,
Yeah,
won Best Independent Film. It won Best Director. It won
mm,
Best Screenplay. Um, Best Visual Effects, obviously.
mm,
Uh, yeah, surprisingly, like I said, for an indie film, it's done extremely well, and especially getting with a good distributor with A4A. Oh my word, the amount of films they've um, distributed, it's
distributed.
brilliant. Yeah, A24. Yeah. Anyway, forget A24. A24.
Yeah.
But yeah, for a good independent film to get a producer like A24 and what else did it do? Universal Pictures as well is great.
Yeah.
It's produced.
Mm.
It's produced by DNA Films and Film 4. Film
Yeah.
4. If I don't know if you're from America, but Film 4 is a British film channel on TV. And DNA Film is another British production company. Done films, some great films actually. Train Spotting 2, Annihilation, which is this director's, I think, second or third film he did. Dread, great film. Sunshine on Leave, 28 Weeks Later and 28 Days Later. So it's a lot of independent films that they do. Oh, and Love Actually as well.
Mm.
But
You're becoming a bit robotic. I can't. It's hard to sort of hear you.
sorry.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know whether you would have to repeat what you just said or not.
Well, if you need me to redo it, I can.
No, I think it's fine. I don't think it's sort of usable audio.
Oh, just don't use it
So
then.
it's just yeah, you're a bit robotic in it. It's not your fault. I mean, it's the internet's fault.
Bloody internet.
What else have
Well,
we got? What else have we got in Ex Machina? I'm going to cut all this out, by the way.
yeah.
Yeah.
I got synopsis. We might need to put that at the beginning if you can do that.
Okay, do you want to sort of read out the synopsis now?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's it.
So I think with the film, I think this is something perhaps I might have picked up on, and I think it's not widely discussed. Is the sort of how the sort of abuse of power between sort of larger tech CEOs and their employers and the sort of the willingness to want to play God and these sort of things. So sort of I mean basically Nathan is more or less based off Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Like you can't deny the sort of the visual representation of the glasses and the cleanness and the sort of the tech bro attitude and sort of stuff like that.
You see that in a lot of sci-fi films, especially. There's a film that came out recently. Jeez, what's it called? It's by one of the directors of Saw.
Yeah. Oh.
I know it's Lee Winnell, and he it was Upgrade. That's it, Upgrade. You can see how Upgrade got influence from films like Ex Machina, especially with the CEO aspect of it.
Yeah, and the sort of the abuse of
Playing God.
Playing God. Yeah, I think perhaps you do kind of, unfortunately, see that in Assets of the World with sort of the Zuck,
the Zuck.
the Zuck. Supposedly, like playing with election results and stuff like that, supposedly, and stuff like that. And I think perhaps before its time in that sort of thing, because I think maybe within that realm, you sort of had the sort of the tech CEOs being a bit sort of crazy, but they hadn't. This was like pre 2016, where all the sort of the electoral social media rubbish started happening, and I think sort of oh god, and I think this is one of the things with sci-fi which I find quite a bit creepy. I think is very very similar with Black Mirror, is them sort of like predicting a sort of some sort of horror like scenario for the future and it coming true, like the episode of Black Mirror where the Prime Minister has coitus with a pig, and sort of predicting various crazy election type things.
Mm.
and there's sort of like it coming true, and it's sort of like these self-realistic sort of sci-fi films that kind of like they're just kind of they're not like super like Star Wars, although it says a long time ago. It's like it's basically set like a couple of
In
thousand
the
years in the future.
future. Yeah.
It's like really really distant future. But these sort of like these new sci-fi things are kind of like they're set in the near future. They're almost
Yeah.
graspable in the sort of in the remits of what they sort of explore,
It's
which is
like when you first see like, especially like alien films, you see like, nah, that's not very
that'll never
realistic.
happen. That'll never happen.
Yeah, but then you see some films that if aliens did come to Earth, how they would react. Because then you see some like see some films that are just like, oh, kill it, but then they want to communicate with it and stuff like that. But like, well, there's especially like technology. How do you call it? Techno horror. It's called. I think it is.
Technological.
I think
Okay.
techno sci-fi, techno horror, and stuff like that. That's
Tech-
that is possibility. That has a possibility of happening,
mm.
especially with some psychos around, psycho businessmen around the world.
Yeah, I just kind of imagine. I don't know. It's definitely something that Elon Musk would do, isn't it? Sort of making a
Not
robot.
Elon.
Not Elon. No, he
He's
never
my,
do anything bad.
he would never do anything like that. Richard Branson, though, he would.
Oh yeah, he'd do anything for like a publicity stunt, though, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Um, I think no, I kind of imagine Elon Musk making some sort of weird because he's making like implants that go into your head.
To have
Um,
like a phone in your face, basically.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think perhaps within the sort of the general area of Ex Machina or Ex Machina, in that
Your
sort of
choice.
in that sort of world of like weird tech bros doing weird things, but you know, yeah, hopefully it doesn't come true, and you know, a robot doesn't get released into the public that wants to kill humans and is super super intelligent. You can't tell that it's actually not a human.
Apart
Um,
from the see-through body it has.
well, it's got like skin, hasn't it, at the end of the
Yeah, it's.
movie, and it
Ugh,
wears like clothes. Like that,
I know.
you could be a robot, Luke. Are you a robot, Luke?
Yeah, I can neither confirm nor deny.
You were going a bit robotic earlier
I know.
in terms of the voice. I think perhaps, you know,
I was my true self was seeking through.
yeah. Discord reveals all in terms of your robotism. Um, it's a true test. It's like in The Thing when they do like the blood and it like bursts up. To like figure out if someone's a robot, you just put them on Discord and see if they go all sort of. Um, um, uh, uh, um, but yeah, I think we've got a bit off topic of Ex Machina, but I think perhaps in terms of the other films that we've reviewed, there isn't that much to say about it. I think I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
We just really wanted to introduce indie films to people, and this is a good
Yeah,
place to start um, for an independent film. I would
yeah.
say
I,
it's low. It looks like a normal high budget film, but it's actually an indie film, and so if you like that, then you like
mm.
many more films.
Yeah, I think perhaps starting off in the indie shallow end with films like Ex Machina, which are basically big budget films but just on a small budget that are supposedly indie, and then
Yeah,
perhaps going more into Portrait of a Lady on Fire and Emma with like more indie foreign films later on in the chain and stuff like that. Perhaps we will
mm,
review one of them one day. Who
yeah,
knows? Which I'd quite like to do.
yeah.
But yeah, Ex Machina is a good film. It's an interesting film. It was a very sort of influential film at the time, and I think it will go down as it'll be an influential film all throughout cinematic history. I think it will go down as one of the sort of the greater films of cinema. I think. Um,
Especially when it comes to student filmmaking or want to be filmmakers, that's a good place to kind of start and say
Mm,
how much. Well, this is how much 15 million can do for you. But then you can go lower and lower and lower and go
yeah.
say, oh, Mother, that's another sci-fi robot film, and that I think that was made by less money. So you could just keep going down the rabbit hole of indie films and see where you come out at.
Yeah. Hopefully, oh, I've got hair in my mouth. Hopefully, just like you do sort of, because it also, as well as in sort of like trying times of coronavirus and COVID and stuff. Um, filmmakers and cinemas are kind of, they're not
At full
making
speed.
at full speed or making a lot of money. I know my local cinema isn't doing so well, and it's kind of a good time to be supporting local cinemas and all that sort of stuff, and watching indie films and buying DVDs and stuff like that. But I think we've come on to the most important bit of the podcast is out of 10. Don't be like that. That guy on Metacritic who just gives it a really positive review and then gives
Yeah,
it a 7. What would you give it out of 10, and what is your sort of reasoning behind it?
I would say out of 10, probably an 8. I would say. I really think the use of effects in it is brilliant. The acting is brilliant. The um, cinematography is brilliant. Wonderful. There are obviously some iffy points in it. Especially when it comes to some, like I said, some visual effects are amazing, but then you can see some visual effects are a bit yeah. But 8, I think's about right. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think this film plays within my sort of what I like from TV and
Hmm.
cinema, because I tend to like to watch is sort of thrillers that make you a bit depressed,
Yeah,
and I think this is kind of within that realm of um, thrillers that make you
yeah,
depressed, because Black Mirror and Mr. Robot is kind of like my sort of favorite shows, and
yeah.
within that. Um, and it's interesting, but I think I don't know. When I sort of review films, or like I think about films, I kind of think about what is my sort of first gut reaction to them, and I'll be like, is it am I enjoying this film?
Mm.
Is it a good film? Is it fun? Is it lit? And I think perhaps when I watched it the first time, I was like, oh, this is a bit.
It's a bit slow
Eh.
to begin with, isn't it?
But I think perhaps at the time I was quite young. I was
Yeah.
relatively, I was
Well,
a quite a
2014. How
simple
old were you back then?
teenager, and I'm no longer, well, 14. Because I'm a millennial, a millennial baby, um, which is, and I think at the time I would have given it like a 6, but I think now perhaps something around like, I don't know, 8.5. I hate giving it an
It's
8.5, because like I'm thinking, what are my reasons for not giving it like a 9 or a 9.5? But I'm kind of agreeing with that guy on Metacritic now. It's like I
yeah.
can't give it a higher
You
score.
can't give it
I
like
don't
a you
know
can't give it
why.
9.5 because it doesn't. It's not on par with like Parasite, is it?
Yeah, I'm not like I enjoyed it, and I can't really think of what's wrong with it, but I can't give it like a good score either. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I don't. I just if I had to write like a thing about it,
It'd be mainly
I
positives.
would be like, "Oh, this is a good film." I'm really empathizing with that guy on Metacritic now.
Yeah.
Just like
You're
all
slating
all of
him
his
at the
thoughts,
beginning.
and now I'm just like, "Oh God, I understand it now. I understand the sort of the pain it goes through."
You live
And
long enough to see yourself become the villain.
yeah, uh, I don't.
Talk
Yeah,
about
I'll give it an
and
8.
yeah. So you talk about really depressing films. This is one of your favorites.
Yeah.
Maybe we might have to talk about Hereditary then, because that is whew, very depressing.
Isn't that is that the one with the where someone dies in the back of the car?
head gets decapitated.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler, yeah. I haven't actually seen the film, but I remember someone showing me that scene, because
Yeah.
they hate me. Well, there we go. We decided what we're going to do next week. We're going to watch Hereditary.
We're gonna watch Hereditary. So if you like horror films
Um,
and you like
yeah,
really
yeah,
depressing films, but it's a brilliant film. But we'll talk about it next week. So join us next week when we talk about
yeah,
Hereditary.
yeah. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this show where we kind of rambled a bit about. I think what we found about this film is it's a good film, but there's not much to say about it.
Much to say about it, but we're glad we talked about it
Yeah,
because we're introducing the indie genre to people.
yeah. I mean, I don't think Hereditary is an indie film, but
No,
perhaps we'll do like a really indie film, a really indie foreign film, and get real sort of
an obscure film.
the
Yeah.
hipster juices flowing. Yeah. And hopefully sort of bring that to the people. Maybe a movie
Ooh,
classic.
what about back in the
You know, a
30s and 40s?
movie.
You...
Well, like the streaming service.
Oh, I thought you said a movie classic.
No, I said movie. MUBI. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Because we have I've asked to be I've asked to be in this club, but I don't know whether the person who runs it will actually let me in the club. I don't know. Maybe it's a very exclusive club. It's we do like a movie club here at the film school, and they all just kind of like watch a movie film. If you don't know what movie is, like I said, it's a streaming service, but like for more like indie films and foreign films and stuff like that. And I think yeah, I don't think Ex Machina will be on there anytime soon, but
No. It's
they
more
have
for the
quite
obscure
quite good
ones.
films. And if you're a student, if you're if you're a film student or we're not sponsored by the way, I should have prefaced this.
But we wouldn't mind.
Yeah, maybe if you want to sponsor a film podcast, yeah, it's free. I think it's free for students, and it's definitely free for film students. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and get yourself some wonderful movie. But yeah, so this is the end of the show now. I'm gonna end it here because I've gone on enough tangents about random stuff.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. There's only so much you could talk about.
But
So
yeah,
I've been
join us.
Oliver.
I've been Luke.
Yeah, and join us next week. We'll be reviewing
Hereditary.
Yeah, hopefully you enjoy. Bye.
Bye.